Is it a slow-moving bullet?
No.
Sort of,
No, it's a 20.
Going across.
It's a 22 rifle, and I have been hurt a few times.
How many times have you done this stunt?
I don't do it that often. It's not the kind of thing that anyone wants to do.
How do your parents feel about you catching bullets?
My parents at first thought I was a little crazy, you know, but they realized the kind of research that goes into anything like this. I had researched it for over 2 years before I would even attempt a rehearsal on it, and the rehearsal went into, it was shooting into things, different metals, into different backgrounds, so I could see what the density was and the velocity and what it would do things.
How do you trust the marksman? I mean, that's...
The marksman is very important. The marksman has to, number one, be strong enough physically to, and mentally, to do something like this, and the gentleman that they had selected in Pittsburgh was a Vietnam vet.
When you say you've researched this, part of the research and part of what I did about reading about you indicates, unless it's all hype, you know, and you don't know, magicians have the right to create illusions, so I'm not putting that down. But there have been, what, about a dozen magicians have been killed attempting to do this?
Which proves it's not just hype.
No, I guess not. No, unless, you know, unless you could check and say that that was, in fact, not even, thank you, was not even good research. So you felt that you could outdo the others, that there was a way of doing it.
When, part of that is from being a woman and trying to be number one in my field. In order to do that, you do have to be better and more spectacular than anyone else around. And in order to be more spectacular and better, you end up doing things that are rather dangerous, you know.
Do you consider the bullet effect the most dangerous of all?
It's absolutely the most dangerous
all the things you've done.
The problem with it is it's considered a jinx stunt as well, because of the people who've been hurt and killed. 12 men have died, and at least another dozen have been hurt.
Do you really believe that because you were born on the same day Houdini died that there is this eerie similarity between you two? Or is that just, again, something that sounds good?
I'll tell you, it's very spooky. It's because I had never even thought of it as a connection, and the more I look into his life and see what happened to him, there's so many things that are very similar between him and me.
What, for example?
Well, we both started out in the business very young. We both moved away from our folks at a young age. So we moved to New York City. He started out doing shows as a puppeteer. He did not start as a magician. And then he added a little magic to the show, and then it got into escapes, which is exactly what happened to me. Now, I was not aware of Houdini or anything about him. I was just trying to make a living, you know, because it's very tough to go to a big city, especially coming from a small town like Erie, PA. And he opened a magic store in New York City, and so did I. And there's just so many things. He also was the publisher of a magazine, and so am I, which is mine's Hocus Pocus.
Do you believe in reincarnation? I mean, do you think that his spirit is somehow in you?
I honestly don't know if I believe in it or not. I find it hard to believe. Magicians are the most skeptical people in the world. So I don't actually say I believe in it, but there are a lot of odd coincidences.
What's other than the thing where you were hanging from the burning rope and your fingers were cold in Los Angeles? That's not good for their PR about the weather out there, but what's another close call you've had in your escaping?
Well, one time I was doing the straitjacket, and I was in a stand-up position. I was not hanging off of anything. And the final get out is where I have to reach my hand up through and get the last buckle. Well, the neckline on the jacket is very tight, and you've got to be precise. And I do have a choke phobia, so I'm always a little bit nervous at that part.
Anything around the throat.
So I had fallen over on stage, and there was my hand right next to my throat, and it was in such a way that I was laying on the hand, and I was a little panicky at that point, but then I was able to regain my thoughts, and like, you know, how panic sets in with mountain climbing, it's the same thing, because you start to say, well, I do want to survive.
This is the actual bullet effect we're watching right now at any point. Go ahead, Dorothy, and tell us.
He's placing the bullet in the rifle, aiming, and he fires through the glass to show that's the bullet in the wall. Behind. That's a test shot. And now I put on a pair of goggles to protect my eyes because I have been hurt from flying glass. In the past, I've had my lip was cut at one time pretty badly, and my ear as well from the glass flying straight at me. And he makes sure that everything that he does, he's got short sleeves. You can see there's no trickery going on. And he's a native of Pittsburgh, so you can, everyone knows him and knows that he's not.
It's a very small target. I mean,
it certainly is. That's why it has to be a marksman that can do it.
Is that Mom?
That's Mom right there.
What a woman. Great. I want Mom on the show.
That's my brother and sister-in-law. And here we go. This was very emotional for them to have to watch this. It was very hard to live through it. And afterwards, my mother was rather ill about it.
Dorothy, I wouldn't do that for $1 million.
There's the bullet.
Wouldn't hitting the glass potentially throw the bullet off?
I certainly could, for sure.
It seems to me like it could.
Not at that speed. It was very close, so it wouldn't. It didn't deflect it.
How far is the distance from where he's shooting to you?
It's about 30 feet.
So it's just accelerating. It's at that point where, okay.
The point is, what she has within her, there's not everyone's chosen to do things like our mountain climber. Not everyone can do these things. Not everyone can be a stunt person.
Yeah.
And they're all chosen to do something, and they're all being blessed, believe me, to have these abilities. And for what you believe that's impossible, believe me, when I've seen some of these things, I can't believe people do it either.
You know, I want to believe. I also want to know what goes through your mind when you know that the risk factor is so high, and then you're there with a, with a thing in your mouth.
Well, it's very scary. Honestly, it's very,
You
very
don't have to
scary.
convince me.
A week before, by the week before, I had convinced myself I'm going to do this no matter what. I am really going to go through it. And then as I got to Pittsburgh, then all these people came up to me, known magicians and friends, and said, oh, please don't do this. The bullet catch is like, it's jinxed. It's not something you should be doing. It's someone that is as good a magician as you, the world would be without a great magician if anything were to go wrong.
It's not worth the risk, in other words.
So that scared me again. So I had to overcome that feeling once more. And then I said, well, I'm committed. I've got to do it.
If you listen to other people's philosophies and their fears, you'll destroy yourself. Anything man wants to accomplish, anything you want to do, if you believe it, go forth and reach for it. But if you listen to your neighbor or your parents or whoever's close to you, they will destroy you. They're the ones that put the doubt.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
You got to go for it.
Let's take a pause and continue with our daredevils who definitely go for it right after this.
And I'll tell you, stunt people are treated like trash most of the time. You're just there, they pay you to do a job, they don't care.
There's a lie down and bleed a while. Next.
That's right.
Yeah. The reason why stuntmen may be taken advantage of in a lot of ways is that if you're working with a pro, you can just leave him alone and you know he's going to do his thing. So in a lot of ways, that ends up becoming a problem to you more than getting respect for that. People ignore you because they know you can handle what you're going to do. And I have found that the same way. The show in Pittsburgh, half an hour before the show, they still did not have someone to go out and buy the bullets. Now, they knew 2 weeks before that what kind of bullets they needed for the gun.
I'm sorry. I would refuse to do it. If they didn't have I would want to look at the bullets perfectly, make sure they were nice-looking bullets, friendly bullets. I wouldn't want just any bullets being fired at me like that.
Well, that's why most everything that I do, I would say 99.9% of the things I do, I have my own staff that I have working for me. If they don't make sure everything is right, they are not going to have a job.
Let's pause for a commercial and we'll be back with more Daredevil gossip right after this.
It takes a special kind of individual, and I would say to the viewers at home, don't try any of these things.
Oh,
it's something that takes
yeah,
something
they didn't know that. I want to repeat that. Don't race out after the show today and try to do this.
Yes.
Thank you. Again, be careful. We'll see you tomorrow at midday. Have a nice afternoon.